It's official. We are entering the intelligence age, and agentic AI is right around the corner. Arguably, AGI will be here by the end of this year, depending on your definition. And things are accelerating quite quickly. Demis Hassabis already said that we're currently conducting about 1 billion years of research per year in biology, which is insane to think about. We also have people like Sam Altman saying that coding will basically be a solved problem by the end of this year. And we have these medical agents that are far superior than any medical professional across all realms of diagnostic capabilities. And pretty soon we'll have like AI dentists, AI everything, just propagating all of the labor economy, and all of these crazy things are happening. But how should we really be thinking about this technology ourselves as individuals? Like, we hear all of this stuff, we kind of can understand what it means. We understand that the economy is going to be changing, the paradigm is going to be changing, and we know that all of this stuff is changing, but we don't know where it's going to end up. So what I want to do in this video is offer my personal outlooks on the future and how I intuit this technology and how I grasp the situation that is in front of us, so that maybe you can have some potential insights from that. So starting off, I think a very important thing to do in order to grasp the magnitude of this technology and how it could potentially affect the physical economy and civilization at large is to look at the previous industrial revolutions and look at how they impacted the economy at large. So starting off with the first industrial revolution, the advent of the steam engine was one of the most pivotal technologies of this revolution. And it touched 3 of the 4 fundamental pillars of civilization. If you're familiar with my YouTube channel, you would know that there are 4 fundamental pillars to civilization: energy, materials, intelligence, and labor. There are no other fundamental pillars. Some people will say narratives are the most fundamental pillar. Sure, that's fundamental to culture, but the quality of narratives emerges from the quality of intelligence. So really, there's only these 4 fundamental pillars. And the advent of the steam engine touched 3 of those pillars. It touched all of them besides intelligence itself. The steam engine allowed us to have energy independence, or geographical energy independence, because we didn't have to rely on flowing water of rivers anymore to establish a factory, for example. And it also gave us the ability to have large magnitudes of labor, effectively replacing hundreds of employees in specific tasks, especially for transportation, for example. We've never had the ability to have mass transportation of very large quantities of resources that cause different parts of civilization to emerge. Also, the ability to actually capture these resources, such as steel, and then manufacture these resources into different use cases. We never had the capabilities until we had these engines, these mechanical forces of labor, were effectively what they are. So that's energy, labor, and materials all being affected to a pretty profound extent by this one engine, this accelerator that, when embedded into a system, it physically causes this exponential explosion, almost like a mini singularity in itself. And all of civilization started to explode once as we had these engines starting to embed into every single system. And it's what caused urbanization. Urbanization wouldn't be here without the advent of the steam engine. So that's step 1. We had this mini singularity just from this very unsophisticated machine. I mean, it was very sophisticated for its time, but now it's like, okay, why would we ever use a steam engine? That's very garbage, old technology. So moving on from there, let's fast forward quite a few years to the birth of the transistor. The birth of the transistor was kind of like the engine for information. It's not that it was the engine for intelligence, but it caused the velocity of information to travel much, much, much faster. It gave rise to the information superhighway of the internet, which caused the velocity of information to be almost instantaneous. And now you see child prodigies popping up out of nowhere being more intelligent and more capable than the boomers of the previous generations. And these child prodigies are effectively becoming millionaires. Some of them are even worth hundreds of millions of dollars and are the youngest, richest people in the world, or the most successful at any sport, or whatever it is, just because they have access to the world's best knowledge at their fingertips whenever they want it. So now that's the information engine, where we're effectively accelerating information. We already talked about the labor engine. Now we're talking about the information engine, which that impacts the three pillars of civilization of materials, energy, and labor. But now it's also impacting intelligence quite a bit, which is where we start to get closer to an actual singularity, where the intelligence starts to explode and like recursively self-improve over all four categories of a civilization. So now that we have the internet as a solidified paradigm, it's like a solidified technology that we just kind of take for granted. We are now seeing the emergence of things like the transformer architecture, neural networks, and these other AI technologies that allow machines to leverage frameworks and algorithms to structurize and extrapolate off of the information that we have been collecting all this time. We have this information superhighway. Now we're giving the machines to use frameworks, use algorithms, and create extrapolations off of the information that we have given it, giving it the ability to understand language and repurpose context and language, and then actually reason and solve very hard, complex problems. And now they have the ability to do actions on behalf of us. This is where we start to get the effects that cascade down into every single category of civilization. Once as you have a system that is more intelligent than humans, it can start to recursively self-improve itself. And it will start to recursively improve the other three categories of civilization. So it'll recursively self-improve across the intelligence front, the materials front, the energy front, and the labor front. And it would effectively cause this singularity that you hear people talk about all the time. Whenever a civilization gets to the point where it can create a machine that can think, a machine that has intelligence, that's when you get to alien levels of technology that are pretty hard to comprehend to previous times. And we are at the doorstep of that right now. It's kind of hard to predict what's even going to happen next year because of this technology. And because of this, one thing I can't stress enough is maximizing coherence, or at least practicing the art of maximizing coherence, which is effectively studying science, because science is like the laws of nature. Laws of physics are the scientific laws that the world, the container that we are operating within, follows. And if you understand the laws of physics, and if you understand sciences and how they are changing, you will always have grounding, no matter how rapid the changes are. I do think science will see lots of breakthroughs over the coming years, and it'll change quite a bit. But I do also think we will be able to see the changes, and we will be able to have some form of an intuitive grasp of the changes, at least for a while. Some of the things aren't predictable exactly how they'll unfold, but I do think maximizing coherence and practicing the art of maximizing coherence, critically thinking and approaching things from first principles, and looking at things from a thermodynamic point of view, like understanding thermodynamics. If you don't understand thermodynamics and you're not catching on to what I'm saying here, I recommend learning about it, understanding entropy and how everything obeys pretty much entropy. And that is honestly the fundamental law of the universe, the fundamental law of biology, the fundamental law of all of organisms, all of the psychological mechanisms in each and every single one of us as humans. I really recommend learning as much as you can about thermodynamics at cosmic scales, molecular scales, and mesoscales all at once, because it plays a very, very important role, and it is like the underpinning of every single one of our lives. And most people don't even know anything about it. So I recommend looking into it as much as possible and maximizing coherence there. But I think we can establish some fundamental guiding principles to help us navigate through this transition. And that's kind of what a lot of the stuff on my YouTube channel is about. I mean, specifically, a lot of it is about business opportunities and the coming changes, and how some businesses will always stay the same because they leverage science as the foundation of the models themselves. Therefore, the models are basically indestructible unless we destruct humans ourselves, right? And I don't think that's going to happen. Therefore, the business models work. And even if we do that, it doesn't matter anyways. You might as well do this business model, blah, 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 right? So that being said, I think that is one of the most important skills anybody can be focusing on right now. Is like maximizing coherence, critical thinking, being able to conceptualize complex systems, and then practicing compression, distillation, and stretching, and all of these different frameworks and mental models within your brain of information and context and data to be able to understand and conceptualize complex adaptive systems and things of that nature, not just on small scales with like coding or a computer or just business, but even potentially geopolitical scales or civilizational level scales, because we now are, as individuals, getting lots of leverage. And the people who have high agency with this leverage, who have big, bold ideas and understand how these systems work, can do a lot more than they ever thought they would ever be able to. And in a very near future, starting in about 6 to 12 months from now, I would be willing to bet. So really focusing on these areas, really conceptualizing these skills is one of the most valuable things any one of us can do. And that's where I'm focusing most of my attention, is really understanding these things. And then also just establishing this YouTube channel, establishing a network and community of other individuals who are high value. I think these are invaluable things that will always be valuable throughout the foreseeable future. And that's what we should really be focusing on in this point in time. And one of the more profound things this technology is going to bring about is the ability to give humans literal superpowers. Like, we already have AlphaFold doing 1 billion years of biological research per year, and we're going to have these literally the ability to solve all of these different diseases, and potentially even have the ability to extend the healthy, youthful lifespan and cause potentially like a biological quasi-immortality. And from there, once as we start to solve those problems, there's no laws of physics saying we can't make ourselves effectively superhuman. Once as we have the ability to edit the genome and edit the human being, we can make ourselves superhuman. So now what you'll start to see is some different levels of gene therapies. You'll have the upper class of society that has the most amount of money buying the designer drugs, the designer gene therapies, and becoming effectively superhuman, while everybody else basically just has no diseases and can live for an extremely long period of time, which is still very amazing compared to how life is today, obviously. But there will always be people who have more resources. The distribution of resources always falls into hierarchical structures in the universe. We aren't getting rid of competition with AI. We're unlocking an entirely new dimension for competition with AI. Whenever you have intelligence as capital, or whenever intelligence becomes capital, you now have the ability to amass and recursively self-improve your own intelligence as an individual. So what that really means is you kind of have this lock in society. Once as you have a certain amount of intelligence that you're recursively improving, you almost get locked in this bracket in society, and it's hard for anybody else to catch up to you. It's a very interesting phenomena that we've never seen before. Maybe something comes out, or some type of scientific discovery comes out that changes the dynamics of this. That's very possible. But right now, that's, if we were to extrapolate the current conditions, that's how things seem to be playing out. Which means those people who have that will have greater resources and then be able to afford the designer drug therapies to make them effectively superhuman compared to everybody else. I mean, this is an extreme scenario to some people, but it almost kind of seems inevitable unless we do have some fundamental breakthrough that comes out that completely changes the paradigm of how everything is being played out right now. But so far, everything is playing out how I am saying. And we would need something that completely shifts everything. A good example is way back in the day, whenever the primary way of traveling internationally was via ships. Back then, one of the smartest people of that time said, one day there's going to be millions of massive ships traveling all across the world, and that'll be the primary way of transportation. 2 years later, flight was discovered and the airplane was invented, right? So that was a terrible prediction by that person. The prediction that we could have these massive disparities in society could turn out false, but so far they are seeming inevitable unless we have some technology that comes out that nobody can foresee that changes the paradigm and then everybody becomes superhuman in the future. I don't think we should rely on that possibility. It is possible, but I don't think we should rely on it. That seems like it could happen. We don't know. It would be dumb to bet on something that we have no priors of. That being said, just to share my perspective, I think the most important thing we can be doing in this time is, like I said, one, maximizing coherence and critical thinking and systems thinking of abstract concepts and systems, and then also building a network, building a community, because your network is effectively your net worth. That will take you far beyond anything else. And if you have a network and a community of people who are adapting with these changes, staying ahead of the technology, and ruthlessly focusing on being ahead of everything, that's going to be an asset that outweighs pretty much any asset you could possibly imagine. Because your network could come together, solve problems, your community could come together, solve problems, and you could have very large amounts of capabilities in the future. You have this pretty much this A team that you're building, an effective community that can propel all of each other forward throughout the changes that are coming, which I think is one of the most valuable things anybody can do right now, is build a community. That's why I am personally building a community. And if you are interested in joining my community, there is a link below to join. Currently, it's only $7 per month. The price is raising very, very soon. If you do want to get locked in at $7 per month and not have to pay the premium price later, you can join now. You'll get locked in. And obviously, if you want to leave, you can leave at any time. But you can get locked in at $7 per month, and it will be about 10xing in price in a not too distant future. So if you want to join, I recommend joining now. But nonetheless, these things are pretty prevalent. They're kind of like imminent now. They're kind of imminent. They are coming at fast paces. Like, the acceleration that we're experiencing right now cannot be understated. It's hard to really even fathom like how things are moving right now because we don't know what's happening internally in these labs. There's already people talking about like OpenAI has probably already achieved the singularity internally. And by singularity, basically what I mean is these systems are now better at improving themselves than the engineers that are at improving them. I wouldn't be surprised if that's already happened. And if it hasn't happened yet, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens by the end of this year or the middle of next year, tops. Things are accelerating very fast. And if you can conceptualize exponentials, you would know if I walk 30 steps that way linearly, I'm going to move 30 yards that way. But if I walk 30 steps that way exponentially, I'm going to end up on the moon. That's kind of what we're experiencing right now. This exponential is so profound that next year we can't really fathom where we're going to be. It's kind of impossible. It's an impossible thought experiment to play out. So yeah, I hope that puts things into perspective a little bit. This is an extremely exciting time to be alive, but it's also a very serious time to really hunker down and pay attention and start moving. Like, do not procrastinate in this time. This is one of the biggest industrial revolutions humanity has ever seen and potentially may ever see for a bit. So I think this is the time to move. There is no better time to start being productive and getting things set into motion for yourself. That being said, Let's build the future. I think the future is going to be really great. I'm extremely optimistic. I really am. I know some of these videos might sound like I'm not very optimistic. I'm one of the most optimistic people you'll ever meet about the future. I also think it's a very serious time to be alive, too. Like, I'm optimistic. I'm very excited. I'm also very serious. We need to get to work. We need to build the future. We need to make sure we maximize our position in the future and make sure our future bloodlines are going to be in the best positions possible in the future, because it's unknown. But what we do know is resources always fall into hierarchical distributions. At least what we might as well do is maximize our position in that hierarchy. Hierarchy. Nonetheless, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.